Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the director's commentary for
October.
October, our movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this, directed it, scored it, acted in it. Did like most of it.
I was the pumpkin and the camera.
And the camera operator, yeah.
No, I was the camera.
And the editor and all that stuff, yeah.
Color grading. I did the color work. You did the copy and pasting of the color work.
Yes. Yes. Um yeah. So if you're watching this, I hope this means you liked your movie and you'd like to know a little more about how we did this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say this about we will be releasing a extensive behind the scenes thing. So I won't get too much into that. So you can watch that. That'll be a separate video. But for this, what I will say about behind the scenes here is we did shoot this mostly chronologically. Um, except for maybe the first 6 days, the first six sections of the movie. You know, with the title cards where it says 1, 2, 3, 6, all that stuff.
What about 4 and 5?
4 and 5 too.
Just kidding.
And so most of this was shot. Everything after that was shot definitely in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else beforehand was shot a little bit kind of out of order, just because of some scheduling stuff and problems that come with filmmaking. But this was right now we're just kind of what do I talk about?
I don't know.
we just recorded the commentary for House. So okay. So this movie came about because earlier this year, we both made two features each, and we were like, hey, we should do another one and make it a little bit bigger and more exciting.
Because we had the two of us to work on it together at that point. Because we want to do our other ones mostly on our own.
Yeah.
And this one would be a pain in the butt to do on your own.
Yeah. And so then I had this idea. There's this kind of my whole kind of thing with Halloween. If you've watched my movies, you know that I have a thing with Halloween. It's shown up in a lot of stuff.
It's your birthday.
It is my birthday, but that's not why. But I just kind of love. I think it's a great holiday, and I wanted to make. And aside from Hocus Pocus and maybe Halloween, and Halloween Town, and I mean, there's very few movies that I think really are great Halloween movies. Unlike Christmas, because there's a whole lot of good Christmas movies, right? And so I kind of wanted to make one of my kind of things is I would love to make a series of movies that kind of perfectly encapsulates, what is it like to Halloween in America, in the United States? What does that look like? Because our version of Halloween is a very distinctly American thing. It's not that much different from other cultures, but I think it's very unique, this how we celebrate Halloween. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to make a series of movies that kind of encapsulates that and shows kind of the magic or what have you, the aesthetic, the spooky vibes of Halloween, what that's like. So this movie was really designed as like kind of from a writing perspective, like how do I take you through that? How do I like if you were on Halloween night watching this, or maybe not watching this, maybe you're on Halloween night and you fell asleep, like what are you dreaming of? Like before, like the day before Halloween, or like that night of Halloween? Like what kind of images are you seeing? What kind of things do we associate with Halloween? So this really wasn't influenced by any particular movie or book or show or anything. This was really influenced just by the holiday Halloween. And it kind of morphed into this kind of dark comedy fantasy, I guess, take on Halloween, which is, I think, is what Halloween feels like. It kind of feels like this kind of crazy special fantasy kind of time part of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie was so that's something I'm really interested in. And I thought of a way like, hey, there's a script. It's got one person in it pretty much. Everybody else is like either on TV or a pumpkin. And so that's how this movie came about, is because I really wanted to make a kind of a Halloween type movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how to further. I mean, what other influences do we talk about any on set?
I don't think we really did. I mean, emotionally, we were influenced by, what was it, Apocalypse Now? Not by the actual content of the movie, but of the experience of making a movie. Because we shot this with multiple all-nighters. And, like, during the day, you would edit. I would go to work.
Mm-hmm.
and then we would come back the next evening and shoot more, and we'd do that on repeat for a lot of this. So it was
Yes.
emotionally draining on that level, or
round
physically draining.
round the clock filming essentially. We had
Yeah.
one day off. So we started on the 8th of October of this year. We had that Sunday the 11th off. We had the 10th off too, actually.
Yeah.
So I guess 2 days. But in total, we shot for 13 almost consecutive days straight and just edited through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crazy, crazy experience. But I would recommend other people try it. But at the same time, it's very difficult
Yeah.
and draining. So be prepared for that. But I think I did feel like we learned a bunch from this experience.
Yeah. And I think in terms of if we go back to inspirations, like I think again we were inspired by Halloween, and we had to just kind of discover what that is for ourselves. How does that look? What does Halloween look? And for us, orange obviously is the color that like starts off that look, and then from there it's like, all right, well, everyone's stringing up all these lights, so we just made sure to light everything as colorfully as possible, and and there are little color motifs for each part of the movie. Like this one has a lot of red in it, the next one has a lot of green in it, and the next one's kind of, I don't know, stays more neutral with just the blues and the oranges, but yeah, just a lot of, we always light bathrooms green.
Just looks cool.
It just looks good.
You've definitely noticed by now the aspect ratio change. If you listen to the Oh Brother director's cut or director's commentary, or seen that movie, you know that I love different aspect ratios and using them. And I think, in short, I think different sizes and shapes influence emotionally how we receive an image, and I like using it, and I think that's a cool thing to play with. So in this movie, again, there's no overall message. There's no meaning necessarily. There's no kind of theme other than just Halloween and that aesthetic experience of just like taking you through what it feels like to live through October. So when we used aspect ratios in this one, like there were certain sections that were definitely planned. Most of the movie I knew was going to be 4:3. That was kind of the base. Everything else after that, it changed when I felt it needed that extra oomph, kind of, for lack of a better word or term. When it needed something else to help it out. Because when we go super widescreen, like when we first met Pumpkin, that has an effect. It feels like, oh, now we're in a movie. Or like when when you play a video game, like for a movie adaptation or something, and then the cinematic in between, like you finish a level, that's in a different aspect ratio. It makes it feel like, oh, now a movie's starting. That's kind of the effect that it has. And so that was the kind of intention with this, is just to take it moment by moment, what feels right in terms of the size and scope of the image, and just do that essentially.
4:3 is the superior aspect ratio, though. If you had to choose one. If you were looking for our comments on aspect ratio, this is the peak right here.
4:3 has a great look. You can do close-ups really well. It has a nice kind of homey image, especially if you're in these spaces. Yeah, 4:3 is great. But also, I love 1:1. I love the vertical, whatever. I love 16:9. 16:9. Super wide is cool too. I had something I was gonna say. I forgot.
I'm now on screen. I mean, I've been here for a while now, but I'm Pumpkin. If you didn't know, it's my greatest role I've ever played. I love Pumpkin.
Pumpkin is great. So we had three. So the three main characters would be Pumpkin, Joe, and the Scarecrow, obviously. And I think when I started this out, the original premise of the movie was 31 days in October for this guy, and each day something weird happens. And that slowly became more of something weird happens for the first 7 days, and then for the next 7 days, and then the last, little section, another weird thing happens. So it became into this more of like kind of this triptych sets of, three weird things happen to this guy during the month of October. And when I say days or sections, I mean, I put the title cards up to kind of break up the story for the pacing a little bit because I liked that break at the end of every little section, but I don't specifically reference days in it, and that was intentional because I think there's a totally valid interpretation where my character falls asleep in section 1 and then everything is a dream up until the very end, or maybe he comes in and out of his dream throughout the movie. I don't know. But when we think of 31, I immediately think of Halloween because that's the holiday that's on the 31st. But I guess New Year's Eve is also on the 31st, right? But you know what I mean, because 31 is we associate that number with Halloween, so I wanted to break it up into 31 sections, whether or not it's days or they are just little vignettes of his dreams, whatever. It's up to you, your call, but it was designed to be that way. So it was designed to be read either as a dream or literally, and when you read it literally, then it's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a dream, then it's all surreal. So whatever works for you. I kind of like the idea that it's a dream, and I played into that near the end of the movie, but we can get that we can get to that when we get there.
Mm-hmm. I'm just getting tired watching this, just from the experience of shooting it so quickly. It's like, oh,
I know.
It just starts to weigh on you after a while.
No, we've seen this a whole bunch in the last few days. And even as we're recording this, the end credit sequence isn't actually done. It's going to be finished tomorrow. And then I'll do the final export. So this is an older version. I love this aspect ratio change of going shrinking down.
Mm-hmm.
It really and then Joe's in a different one. So it's this fun little separation of where they are, because Joe's very much, he's kind of oblivious. He's he doesn't get it. He doesn't, and even if he did see that the pumpkin, I think he sees that the pumpkin's acting strange, but he's like, what's he gonna do? It's a pumpkin. He can't do anything. And then this pumpkin is very serious, and it's whoosh, almost like a Samurai Jack transition, close up of the eyes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this character really, the pumpkin character, it was one thing on the page, but it wasn't until I don't think it was until filming that we really that the character really became who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was kind of a blank slate. And the same thing with the Scarecrow character.
Phil brought a lot to the Scarecrow character.
Phil brought a lot. That was intentional, because I knew Ethan would either play or voice one of them, and then Phil, our Scarecrow, would do the other. So they were kind of done to be intentionally blank slates for them to put their own spins on and all that.
Yeah, Pumpkin's definitely an evolving character, because he starts off pretty one way, and then once he sees the movie, I started to tweak around with having him just go. Mm-hmm. Essentially, he goes full Darth Sidious in this by the end, when he's laughing and cackling and just fully a super villain, basically.
Yeah.
And then he switches back to this innocent Pumpkin, who's even more innocent than when we first meet him, I felt like.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely went back and forth. We would record some lines, and then you'd have me re-record some over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we shot, the more I kind of knew the direction I was taking Pumpkin, because it was definitely finding him as we went kind of thing. I didn't have an idea for Pumpkin when we started, really.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun to get to develop the character over a movie, and I think he's more consistent now than I felt like he was at the beginning, and that's just because we were working through it, got to really feel out.
Mm-hmm.
We had the time to feel him out.
Yeah.
And then Phil doing Scarecrow, Phil nailed it first time through, because Phil just has an energy that can't be matched.
Pretty much. I think if we were to point to any specific show to be what is this movie like, I would probably say Regular Show.
Yeah.
And that's not just because Scarecrow really reminds us of Pops from Regular Show, but I think because that's a show where it begins with the characters mowing the lawn, but then it always ends in some intergalactic conflict where the fate of the universe is on the fate of Mordecai and Rigby, and that's kind of what this is. I mean, the scale isn't that big, but it does go back and forth with like that. It ramps up that fantastical level.
Yep. Like you can hear pumpkins using telekinesis on you
Yeah.
as you're butchering pumpkins.
And that's kind of, I kind of like that in movies in terms of like everyday stuff. I think we're kind of the similar. I know me me especially. I don't know if you feel the exact same way, but drama movies are kind of not my thing. Like I love watching them, can be great. I'm not super interested in making them unless there's kind of a fun. There's got to be something more to it. I really like working within genre.
Yeah.
So dramas aren't not just straight normal stuff isn't kind of our thing. And I kind of like that in this movie, the fantastical happens and my character doesn't really question it a whole lot. He just kind of goes along with it. I think the most he does is he, like, when he finds the pumpkin for the first time, he's like, oh my gosh, there's a talking pumpkin. And, you know, that's, like, the biggest thing. But when the Scarecrow starts talking with him, he doesn't really act that much. He just kind of goes along with it. And same thing with the skull or the creature at the end. Like, they're kind of, it's just kind of this accepted fact that there is this mystical force in the world. And you don't, like, kind of like have to get over that hurdle of like, oh my gosh, we have to deal with it. No, it's like, no. It's magic is real. Let's just get into it. Because otherwise, I don't know. I think that's kind of boring to look at the world that way.
Yeah, if your character was questioning you every step of the way when you're working on the movie, it'd be tedious at a certain point. There'd just be a hurdle they're constantly like not able to get over. But
And I mean, is that more realistic? Yeah, probably. But like,
but where's the fun in that?
Exactly. It's not. I think it's more interesting to just have magical stuff happen and it just kind of be accepted as a part of the thing. And that's one of the great things about movies or books or whatever is you can, when you make your movie or book or whatever, you can design your world however you want. There's always the question of realism that comes up of like what's realistic in a movie. And the way I always define realism or what's realistic is if the movie doesn't break the rules of the movie. So right, like in let's say Lord of the Rings, right? It's kind of established that there are magical rings, there's dwarves or elves. That's a very normal thing. But if a spaceship just boomed into Middle Earth, that would make no sense because that hasn't been a part of the rules or anything.
Could you imagine if they did that though?
Crazy, weird. You've been like that. So that's a thing where you'd have been like, that's unrealistic. Another example would be, say you are doing a drama movie, and it is a kind of very, normal kind of movie, nothing fantastical. Then all of a sudden, a wizard pops up and just starts casting spells everywhere, right? Like that's very unrealistic because you haven't established the rules. Now it's different if that wizard comes, and that's kind of the point that they discover wizards and that kind of thing. That's a different story. But my point being is when you're designing a movie or story, you can make the rules as realistic or fantastical as you want because you're the architect of it all. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So go out there and make whatever you want.
Yeah, so the term realistic is relative to each individual thing. Lord of the Rings isn't any more realistic than Clerks, for example. Or Harry Potter isn't that much more realistic than Titanic, yeah. Exactly. No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the best part, I think what makes this movie work too, is I think you can clearly tell that we're having a good time making it, even when we're not having a good time and it's really rough. Like, we were having a blast putting this together, and I think that should be the thing you strive for is don't make the movie you think you should be making, but make the movie that speaks to what you want to make. Yeah. So if you want to make a weird experimental movie about a guy walking around a house at night with a lighter and there's weird stuff happening, then make that movie. And yeah, as long as it's realistic to the world you build around it, that's great. And if you want to make a movie about talking pumpkins and scarecrows on Halloween, like, make that. Or if you want to make your Hollywood movie, that's cool too. Like, I don't think we're here to tell you what you should or shouldn't make. Just make the thing that you have fun making, and then don't let anyone tell you, like, that's wrong. Unless it's constructive criticism, in which case that's always
different.
Helpful. That's always good. You should be looking for that.
Yeah.
But if someone's just saying, "Don't make that. I don't like it," then I don't think that person is really anyone you should put much stock in. No, this is the greatest tragedy of the movie right here: is my character getting murdered.
This was a fun. Okay. So this is another thing. So if you've seen our other short, Here Comes the Pumpkin Man, you'll notice that this beginning, the first 7 sections or 6 sections of this movie, they're pretty much a remake of it, like beat for beat almost. And that was done because that was a story that I liked and it was fun, but I don't think I really did it. I thought there was another take on it. I thought I had another way I could do it. And, with short films, don't worry about copying yourself or repeating yourself. Like if you're a YouTuber, like really, because yes, I'm proud of the movies we've made, but let's be honest, thousands of people, millions of people have not seen the first one. Millions of people are not going to see this one. So if you copy and remake a little bit of your stuff because you didn't feel like you did it right the first time, go for it. Like, I don't think there's a problem with that necessarily.
Yeah.
And so this is the version. This is a version. This is definitely a less serious version of Here Comes the Pumpkin Man. But I think I enjoy it better because it's way more well shot and it's more focused in a way that the first one wasn't. Not that I don't like the first one, but I think I like this one better.
Yeah. And I think we kind of view our YouTube channel as like, it's our sketchbook. Like, you have a sketchbook. You don't want, like, you're not saying, this is the final product. Everyone look at this. It's like, no, this is yours. You get to work on it. You can show people things that are in it. But if you had an idea from 3 years ago and you look back on it, it's like, I could do this way better now, and that inspires you, then we don't really have any issue with, just taking our own ideas and bringing them into what we're doing now. I think this is a great example of that, where it's like we're not remaking it shot for shot. I mean, if you want to do that, even that could be interesting. But we just let ourselves influence ourselves.
Yeah,
in a non-egotistical way.
And it's like the sketchbook thing is like, if you're an artist and you have a sketchbook you carry around and you're trying to draw hands, you probably have 50 pages full of hands. Like of just like pages of just like human hands are in different positions. So, and I mean, I would say our feature films, I think we're a little more precious with those. Like our feature films are definitely, that's not so much our sketchbook, but that's like, here's an art piece. Here's like a canvas print of something.
Yeah.
But our short films are more or less our sketchbook stuff. But our YouTube channel in general. But
yeah, no, that's a good point.
But this was kind of like my thing of like, okay, I'm going to give one last shot at doing the pumpkin, the talking pumpkin. And this will be kind of the definitive statement on it. And then this second section was based on an early version of Doom on the Doorstep, which, if you've seen the film, it's about, I mean, if you haven't seen the film, it's about a young woman on Halloween night. She's visited by a trick-or-treater and who won't leave her alone, who's kind of this dark magician, I should say, I guess. So earlier versions of that, the Doom on the Doorstep refers to the trick-or-treater, obviously, in the short film. But earlier versions, the Doom was an object instead. Like, it was this cursed rock. It was this cursed thing. And so the second section, or second arc, I don't know what you call it, like the second storyline in this movie, this was essentially like, we never got to make that earlier version of Doom on the Doorstep where it's kind of this cursed object. Let's do it again. Or I mean, let's do it for real. So this was kind of an abandoned idea, not really abandoned, but kind of, it was always in the back of our heads kind of thing. And this was kind of like, again, like, we didn't get to do it with the short version of the film because the other thing worked out, which we're super happy with that other one too, by the way. Like, not that we're not, but this was just another kind of idea that we had a few years ago or over the last 2 years.
Yeah. There's always room for using ideas that you like, even if it's not, you have to credit from one project. Like, that doesn't mean you can't use it ever again.
Yeah.
Like, hold on to that stuff. Black and White Dreams. Hey, that's just like the other movie.
Yeah. I don't know. When did you shoot House?
I shot House give me a second here. I gotta look back on my calendar. It's been a while. It was in August.
Because I know that
I shot it on the 28th and 29th.
Okay.
The first half.
So this is the timeline. I wrote October in August, I believe, and then I storyboarded it all throughout September. So that was kind of the timeline in terms of like production and stuff like that. So it would have been happening at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. I remember House was something where I was like, we were always, I wanted to get it done before we started working on these so we weren't overlapping projects. Because I thought House was going to come out end of September, but then we had a talk and it was like, wouldn't it be cool if it came out on Halloween?
Yeah.
And then now we've loaded our Halloween week with two shorts, or one short and two features. So.
Yeah. This was, we love analog technology. So if there's a television in our movies, it's usually a tube TV. I was really bummed I couldn't get one in Oh Brother, but whatever.
Okay. Yeah, we got VHSs usually. Even in our movie, My Father's Spaceman, our movie set in like 2054 or something like that, far in the future. Still got our girl in that. Still got VHSs and stuff.
Yeah.
It will always fit in our movies somewhere.
Yeah. And that's one of those fun self-reflexive things where it's like this kind of nod to like, I wouldn't say it's this nostalgia towards that technology, but it's definitely like this appreciation. Not like this a lot, because I love Blu-ray. I love the clearness of Blu-ray, and I love flat screen TVs and LCD. I love all that stuff. Is it better than, those tube TVs? Yeah, absolutely. But I still like, there's something to be said about that experience of watching a horror film on a old tube television, which is kind of the vibe we were going for this. Like, this is a kind of movie I would love it. Like, I would imagine this is like, a seasonal VHS, right? That's packed away with your guys' Halloween stuff. And every October, you guys get out all the boxes of your decorations, set everything up, and then you have you have like a Simpsons Halloween special in there, you have the Charlie Brown special in there, and you have October. So this was intended to be like a big long Halloween special that you crack out every year with your and you watch with your family.
It feels like it's one of those movies that you get at Blockbuster. Like it's that one you're like, oh, what the heck is this? And you just kind of stumble on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trick or Treat's another like kind of Halloween-y type movie. Now, obviously, that one's a horror movie, but this is a kind of similar thing. You watch it during Halloween to get or watch it during October to get in the mood for Halloween. So that's why there's a little bit of everything in here. There's kind of that whimsical, kind of childlike, kind of Charlie Brown stuff with the pumpkin. There's even a reference there near the end where I call the pumpkin a great pumpkin. But there's some horror stuff with the pumpkin turns evil and the skull that's cursed, but there's some magical kind of stuff to it with the scarecrow and the different things that happen, and obviously there's lots of candy and pumpkin pie and talk about all that stuff.
Kind of like Over the Garden Wall, where its tone can shift so quickly from scary, really scary stuff to really lighthearted, like very childish things.
Yeah. So this, it's really written, and like this was made to watch with your families or your friends on like Halloween or in October next year, whenever you want to get in the mood for Halloween, like watch this movie. That was always the intent behind it. Yeah.
Really got excited about that chocolate syrup there.
I know. Yeah. This was, I think we're starting to see a little more round aspect ratio with the rounded edges on the aspect ratios. That was my kind of, again, as I said before, I had no overall theory on how to use aspect ratios other than what felt right for each scene or moment. But I did try to do rounded edges when it was kind of a little more dreamlike, a little more fantastical, or like this guy's being trapped by these outside magic forces, essentially. Which isn't always like the movie doesn't play out that way necessarily, like each time I do use it, but I did kind of, when I considered using a different aspect ratio, I thought about how much magic is going on in this thing and use it based on that. On that.
That's usually how you do it. You usually set yourself a parameter of your aspect ratio or whatever.
And it can change movie to movie too. Like, I mean, on Oh Brother, I did it. What was it? Rounded was when the brothers were getting along.
And hard edges when they were fighting.
Yeah, and then I can't remember. I think it was one brother was 4:3, the other brother was 1:1. But like it's the same. Like no director ever uses the close up in the same way movie to movie. You know what I mean? Like it's just a tool. How you use colors or shapes or close up or music, like that can change. It doesn't have to be consistent. I know some movies, some critics, they'll watch movies by directors and they'll say this director used a close up in this movie to be like, I don't know, super like glorify something or patriotic or whatever, and then they use it in another movie and they're like, oh, this person's obviously glorifying violence because there's a close-up of this gore. It's like, no, that's just because they use the close-up one way in one movie doesn't mean it's the same movie every single movie. But I don't think there's going to be that confusion here necessarily.
No, not quite.
Yeah, the TV and the maze stuff was actually some of the first stuff we did for the movie. The dream stuff, the scarecrow, and the maze were the first three things we shot. Yeah. And so it was kind of fun as we were filming to see it all come together.
Yeah, all the TV stuff is on the TV. It's not like we did a plate or anything. Like we copied this stuff onto a VHS tape and would play it through. So it's real.
Yeah,
we're committed.
Another plug, something we do on the side is we digitize old VHS tapes, but we also put movies onto VHS tapes. So if you're in the need for a custom VHS or digitizing some old tapes, come to us and we'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that stuff. But it also made it a lot. I mean, some of it was harder because we had to coordinate the timing with the VHS, but it looked better.
Yeah, I would rather have to coordinate timing than have to do like tracking that panning shot or whatever. Like it would have been such a pain for some of these things.
And acting wise too, it made you easier because you could see what you're interacting with, rather than just pretending to be talking with a thing on the TV. So I thought it worked a lot better. I think.
Yeah,
doing it for real. And if you can't do that, another way of what we could have done it is we could have plugged in a DVD player into the TV and just played like a DVD or a USB version of the footage. But again, we love analog technology. It's fun.
It is fun. Some people collect records. We watch movies on VHS.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I love. This gives us so much production value. The fact that we just live in a city where there is a corn maze really close by. So we got to use that. And I mean, the only hard part about it was there are other people.
Yeah. So I had to dub this entire sequence. And it worked fine, I think. It worked okay with the what's it called? Can't
you thinking of the dubbing?
The dubbing worked fine, I think. It worked okay. It's all right. But then adding the music on top really helped it because then you weren't thinking about the sounds. And especially if you know that it's dubbed, then that'll sometimes be distracting. But if you don't know that it's dubbed, I think it's...
Well, the fact that we dubbed all of it really helps because not one scene really stands out from the other. So that's just how the movie is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. So like, we did end up dubbing the entire movie essentially. Some scenes we left in the normal, like we had lavalier mics on set, so sometimes we let that sound in, but then other times, I stayed up till like 5 a.m. one night just dubbing this entire movie, all the lines and all the sound effects and everything. And some of the scenes there are definitely sounds missing, like a clink of a glass or a thud of something being set down. But that was intentional, and that was done because to play into that dream thing, because dreams aren't real, and I wanted to give a sense of sometimes this stuff, some of the scenes I wanted to feel more dreamlike, and I didn't want to have all this extra room tone or clutter. I just wanted you to hear the dialogue and maybe another sound effect because I wanted it to feel a lot more like a dream, which was intentional. And also, convenient wise, it's a hell of a lot easier not having to dub all of that stuff for one scene. If anyone's done dubbing before, sometimes it's easier just to dub the dialogue and move on. But I made sure that I wanted to make it easier, a little bit easier on myself. But also, like, I wanted to think about, kind of in the form, the sound design of the movie, like dreamlike, not dreamlike. What am I gonna do here? And that's all intentional, and that was all thought out.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that we couldn't have dubbed the entire movie and all that stuff, because like we know how that would have been fine to do. It would have been a pain in the butt, but we could have done it. So
yeah, it was more just a time thing, and what we wanted to focus on just didn't require that.
And a choice. Yeah, it's a choice. A lot of times with fantasy and genre films, you can make these mistakes, quote unquote, become your strengths and become interesting parts of your movie. Mm-hmm. The graveyard is a thing that we've used before. This specific graveyard,
many times.
It looks great. We love it. And it's one of those images that we associate with Halloween as a culture, as in America. So we have the corn maze, we have the farm, the pumpkin patch, the graveyard. We have the kind of cozy home in front of the TV playing, Halloween spooky movies and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Lots of lights.
This is there's very few stuff set outside in the movie.
Yeah.
There's only a handful. Most of it's inside. I did all the music for this, which I wish I had more which I didn't, when I committed to doing that, I didn't realize how big of a deal that would have been. I don't know why, because I've done it before, and it's like, oh my gosh. But it's one of those things where, again, if you know GarageBand and you know what your limitations are and what sounds natural and unnatural, you can get away with a lot. And also, listen, I wish I would have had more time to develop different themes as the movie goes on. But what ended up happening was I just kept using. There's maybe a handful of themes, maybe 3 or 4 themes in the movie, and I just repeated those a whole bunch. And that's one of those things where I didn't really have the time to develop themes for each, little thing that I wanted to. So what I did instead was I wrote different versions of the themes. And so in that way, that made it kind of a fun musical motif kind of thing to play with, because then it's not like, oh, here's a different thing, here's a different theme. It's, no, this is the same thing played in a different way. How does that change our perception of the scene or that theme in general? So that's something that, that's not a new thing. That's every single composer does that. Play the same theme in a different way or a different instrument. Mm-hmm. So that's a really fun thing. So it was kind of one of those things where I got to, instead of expanding out with the musical ideas, I just got to drill down really deep with with a handful of ideas and just reuse those a whole bunch. Which again, would I've preferred to use different themes? Yeah, but I think it works fine to, develop themes differently.
Yeah, in these short movies like this, I think that more repetitive style, it makes it feel kind of cohesive in a way, mm-hmm. especially a movie like this where we are bouncing around a lot.
Yeah.
But even in like movies like House, we did the part of the soundtrack for that,
mm-hmm.
like using these very repetitive themes, just kind of helps hold the movie together in a way.
Mm-hmm.
If your themes are all over the place, it can kind of feel disjointed.
Yeah.
And this movie could go either way, where it's like, oh, there's these 3 stories that don't
mm-hmm.
really link into each other much. Like, why is it so disjointed? But I don't know. With the soundtrack, I think it really is. It's a piece that helps
mm-hmm.
bridge it together.
And I think to that point is with the original short film of Here Comes the Pumpkin Man, I did all the music for that. I thought in like retrospect, I thought the themes were kind of all over the place. Like there were some themes that kind of repeated and tied together, but it really did feel all over the place to me looking back. And so I took the main theme from that movie and I just developed that over this entire movie essentially. So the music is the same, or one of the themes is the same, maybe 2. I can't remember how many I reused, but so it's the same theme for the pumpkin essentially, but I use that throughout the whole movie. And so yeah, again, it was a way to make the whole thing feel a little more cohesive and less like disjointed and give you whiplash. Because that is a danger of different musical themes and stuff, is is it going to sound super different than what came before it? Is that going to take you out of the movie? I think we see a lot of by this point. I think by this point in the story, we have established, Joe, Pumpkin, and Scarecrow as main characters. Sorry, that crow bit gets me every time. I love it. So now this is kind of feels a little bit more like the regular show, as we were saying. Like now it's like here's the gang, here's a problem, here's how they interact. Let's see them come together and try to fix this problem or whatever.
Love to see a sequel with these characters.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to do. I think there's potential there. Would I want to do it this quick? No.
No.
But here's another promise. If someone would like to pay us $2,000, I would absolutely film another movie in 15 days again. No question.
Yeah.
Because that means we wouldn't have to focus on other obligations or anything. And we could afford to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, are we going to make another feature film in 15 days again? No.
Probably not.
Probably.
I'm going to say probably not.
I'm going to say 95% no.
Yeah.
95% of me is going to say no.
Yeah.
Unless someone decides to sponsor us and like, hey, make a movie in 15 days, then we absolutely would. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that I think everybody should do once, but like, don't regularly do that.
It'll teach you your time management very well and planning, and the struggle will grow you.
And it reminds me of those like 48-hour film challenges, where it's like you get together with a crew and you film over. It's like that, but I think that's kind of like a sprint. This was like a marathon because this was 15 days again, or I'm sorry, 13 days of shooting, 2 days of editing.
Oh yeah, and 2 days of editing. You edited while we shot.
Yeah,
it wasn't like we edited this whole thing in 2 days.
Yeah, no, it was. We would shoot. I would edit everything that same day, and then I would try to picture lock it and make it perfect and sound correct it as much as possible, so that way, when we came to the end of the movie was essentially 90% picture locked, and I just had to drop in the ending of the movie.
Mm-hmm. And we'd do like our last pass of editing. We'd kind of go through and be like, oh, we can shorten this shot. Oh, we'll delete this. And we had a couple of days where while we were shooting, I would come in and you'd be like, hey, should we cut this bit that we shot? And so we would have those discussions while we were shooting, which helped cut down on our time.
But I think in general, we're both pretty good at killing your darlings. That old phrase of like, if you have too many scenes or it's too long, I feel like we're both pretty good at like cutting those down.
Yeah.
And not being super precious with our footage. Because the idea is if you have 4 really amazing scenes and you have to cut 3 of them, we're fine with cutting those 3 amazing scenes because it's going to make that one scene way more amazing than all 4 of those scenes would have been together. Mm-hmm. So it's all for the betterment of the movie.
I think this was one of the shots that I made you redo the most times. Was like the tying and everything. I don't know why. This was one of those moments where we were exhausted, and like getting that just right was a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that was a pain in the butt was this Keurig.
Yes, so that's my sister's Keurig. That's my cup though, and I don't know what's wrong with it, but it doesn't work when you plug into certain outlets, and it's this weird kind of thing where you have to press it down a certain way, and I don't know, but it was a pain. And then when it finally did work, we immediately turned on the camera and started filming. But then it overflowed like
tons of
coffee. And it was cold too. It wasn't even warm. It like just, it was weird. I love this image of the circle and the ghost in this. I think this is my favorite circle aspect ratio in the movie is that image of the ghost.
That could have been another great company logo.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Didn't think about that till now. Whatever.
I love this shot too because this is the most movement I think we get in the movie so far. And I just love that. I mean, finally we see, because usually before this, me and the pumpkin have been in different frames. Me and the Scarecrow have been in different frames. Pumpkin and Scarecrow have never been in the same frame. But I love this image of all of them together revolving around, just kind of like, here's the gang.
It's the Justice League.
Yeah, it's the team. Yeah, I think this is where I have the most fun with the movie. Is in the second part where we're trying to catch the.
Yeah, it's the part that shines. Like these last 8 days, I think, of the movie were
Yeah.
the most fun to shoot.
Yeah. And split screen again. That's something else I really love to play with is split screen. I don't think I've done that on our channel too much now.
Mm-mm.
But it's some. No, wait. Okay. So if you watch, there's a movie on our channel called Je crie en mangeant. Je crie en mangeant. If you're gonna pronounce it American or English or whatever. That's on a short. There's a lot of split screen in that in different aspect ratios. Also, there's a short. Here Comes the Pumpkin Man. There's a little bit of that in that. And then also, I don't know when it's going to be released, but there is another. There's a secret Halloween movie that we shot this year too, which is probably why this took a lot longer because we were in a time crunch.
Mm-hmm. I forgot what it was. I was like, what secret Halloween movie is he talking about? I remember now.
It came from Witch's Hollow. That's the name of it. We shot it for the first weekend of October this year. And that was for a contest kind of thing. So at some point it will be released. But the reason that we had to rush for this movie was because for the first two movies, that was the only weekend we could shoot, that we were free to shoot. So we had to do it then. And that ate into our time for filming the feature-length film. And so we had to finish this by Halloween. So it was like that, we had to get it done. So that's kind of partially why we were in a big rush.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, in that that other short Halloween film, there's aspect ratio stuff in that, a lot of different stuff, and split screen. So, and I think that was the first split screen that we got in the movie. No, the opening credits. Never mind. Yeah. I'm an idiot.
That's more of a montage, anyways.
Yeah, but yeah, I like split screen. I think that's pretty cool. I like, stuff like this where you kind of circle in on just key in these two faces because that's really all that's important. And I think that's the intention whenever I change the aspect ratio to an extent that dramatically is like it's, I'm telling you, don't look at anything else in the frame. Look at these guys. And I think at our level, we don't have the resources necessarily to light and block and design everything perfectly so that you look right at this spot in the frame, in this cluttered frame, right? We don't necessarily have that. So changing your aspect ratio, that's what they did in the silent era, and that's what you can do today. That's a simple trick where it's like, maybe your frame's a little too cluttered, but you want to focus on just these two faces. Cut out everything but those faces, and it works totally fine.
Yeah, we'll do double circles sometimes where it's just one person's face over here. So they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
It would be across the frame, but now we bring them in really close to one another.
And obviously there's emotional kind of repercussions of that where that has a different effect than maybe that you want. So you have to be careful and think about how it's going to affect each moment and shot. But it's a tool that they don't teach you to use in film school that they should.
It's a really fun thing to play with. We totally recommend it. Like I think one of our things we'd always tell people is just like have fun with it.
Yeah.
Try things. Don't worry about like making it perfect, quote unquote, because you can always elaborate for the next time you do it.
Yeah.
But taking risks on just little things like your aspect ratio or the way you frame a shot, like just little things like that, or light colors. Like you'll probably notice if you compare our shots, like our lighting continuity is really off. Like in one shot, Joe can have a blue light on his face and a red light. Another shot will be just red. Like, and we don't really worry about that because it's not so much the lighting continuity that matters. It's what the light makes you feel that we care more about, or just the fact that it's like, oh, that light needs to go into the background. We only have this many lights, so it's our restriction that we just kind of play with. We don't worry about it all the time.
The more stylized you can get, I think the more you can get away with.
Yeah.
Because if you're if you're trying to do a drama and do total continuity editing and just stick with that and make it all fit and perfect and logical, there's a lot you can mess up on. And I think that's a big kind of failing on a lot of student films when they're starting out is they'll make drama films. And I'm not saying they shouldn't make drama films or that's not important because I think it totally is. But it's such an easy way to screw up when everything does have to be perfect and it does have to follow the continuity perfectly and all the lighting has to match up and you have to cut on action and all that stuff. But when you get more stylized, you can get away with a lot more because then those mistakes or those differences become kind of interesting thematic or formal technique things that you get to play with and get away with.
I think one of the things that we can get away with that's goofy is like this monster arm that's so janky, and just, you know, if you're looking at it from an obvious standpoint, I'm just off frame with a glove on,
Yeah.
just trying not to get into the shot, but it's just this goofy thing that's really funny. I think it's we were talking about, you know, what breaks the rules of your world. That doesn't break the rules. If you said it on paper, you probably would think, oh, that sounds really weird and bad, but like everything else is just in a world of campiness, or a level of campiness that, of course, it's not going to look perfect. Like that's not the point.
I think it with this too is like, it's a short movie. It's only an hour or so. And is there a version of this movie where it's 90 minutes and we kind of fully elaborate and explain every little bit of magic and detail and change? Like, yeah, there totally is. But I kind of like that this is just a quick in and out. And that's not really what I was interested in explaining everything. I thought it was more interesting just to like have this kind of magical Halloween experience over the course of this hour and then just like leave you with that. Whether or not, you know, again, you take it literally or interpret this all as a big dream in his head, like that's up to you, but that's kind of the idea that we want to go with. There's another one of our films, and that was Phil the Scarecrow playing a zombie behind him. I don't know if anyone can recognize that necessarily.
I recognize it.
I know.
Then again, I was there.
We've known Phil for so long.
Because that was like a 2013 movie. I think it was 2013 we made that one.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
13 or 14, one of those years.
2014 was when we made our first feature film.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
It sucks. So I mean, would it be, I mean, if anyone wants to see it, you can. Is it on our channel still?
Yeah, it's still up.
Okay.
Great American Sleepover.
Yeah, if you want to watch it, but just know that
that was made 6 years ago.
That was like, we had only been making movies for like 2 years by that point.
If that. You had been making, I came on a little later.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I started as an actor for our movies, and then kind of moved into being just a camera op. And now I hardly act at all.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, like if you're interested in watching our other feature films, watch, I guess, Great American Sleepovers, just to see where we started and how crappy we were.
Just to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Really.
No, honestly, like, and that's what I'd say about any of our movies is, you know, any of our feature films, they're not amazing. Like, they're really good. Some of them, I don't know. I don't need to say. I mean, listen.
I said that so depressing.
No, I mean, here's what I'd say. Are there better movies out there? Yeah, there's a lot of better movies out there. But we made ours all by ourselves, on our own, pretty much. And I don't think
no money.
and I don't think it'd be that much harder to make better movies than what we have. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage, not challenge, but I would like encourage you guys to, like, if you're a filmmaker and you want to make a feature film, just go out and make it, because it's not as hard as it seems.
It just takes time. That's all it takes.
Time,
it's gonna
practice,
take your time.
Determination, discipline. It takes all of that, and I guarantee you'll make like a movie that's just as good, if not better, than any of ours. Certainly better than Great American Sleepover.
Yeah.
Definitely better than Oh Brother. October and House, like, those are two kind of out there movies. So it's like, and even in that respects, like, if you're making weird, interesting, artsy fartsy kind of stuff, like, who's this, you know, what is good, you know, that's just such a subjective thing. Like, you know, they're good. The enemy of creativity is good taste. So try things, be interesting with them, and you'll have fun at the very least. And that's all I think you can ask for when it comes to filmmaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, more people should definitely make feature films, because you get to do weird things, and they'll make really interesting kind of things.
Yeah.
Part of what came out of House, and I think this movie, is like, we've never seen movies like this before, and we wanted to see those movies. So we're making movies that we'd want to see. Mm-hmm. And I get, like, kind of like what Ethan was saying. I'm not sure if in this commentary, the last one, but like
the Ford Coppola quote or what?
Well, it was just like, don't make the movie you think you should make.
Oh.
Make the movie that you want to make.
Yeah, it was House.
And these are movies that we wanted to see, that no one else was making, and we wanted to see more of, and we wanted to see it made that we'd like to see. So
Yeah. Because the way I like to think of it is like, I'm probably not the only one out there with my taste. Like, at least roughly, someone out there will be interested in the thing that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I'll make it for them. And I hope they enjoy it. Because we've made our movies up to this point. We have like a close-knit friend group who have worked with us. Like, usually it's friends that will just be like, hey, come act with us for a day or whatever. Come be in this movie. And a lot of the times, I think we make our movies knowing at least that friend group will like them.
yeah,
And I think that's great when you're starting to have those people who will like be voices who will support you. But at a certain point, I think House for me was the movie where it's like, the whole time I was making it, it's like, most of my friends will probably not like this, and that was okay. Like, you have to reach.
but
that
we
point,
love
like,
this.
But I was psyched on it when I was like, once I was kind of seeing it come together. It was like, yes, this is a movie I love to watch, like in theater. So I think having those cheerleaders for you is awesome. But at a certain point, like, you can become your cheerleader in a way. Like, just make your movie.
I will, in terms of influences, I will say that Legion by Noah Hawley, that's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. And the climax of the first season takes place in like different realities and dimensions. And one of those dimensions is a silent film world. And that's kind of where I got the idea for this black and white silent thing.
Also, your family is just really loud. That's another
Yeah.
reason why we went silent.
Yeah, it's hard to shoot in a house totally silent when you're. That was another reason for dubbing, essentially, is because we couldn't get clean audio, scene to scene, really.
That's why we did all-nighters, because we knew the family would be asleep.
Yeah. I love this creature.
Yeah. So this is made, if you want to know how low budget this is made out of dollar store streamers, dollar store tablecloths, a $6 jumbo trick-or-treating basket that I wrapped in burlap and painted orange and black to look like a pumpkin head.
Yep.
And and it's all strapped to a bicycle helmet with zip ties.
Yep. And I love it. It's so good. I love it. And I don't know.
Yeah, inspired by, if any of you watched Over the Garden Wall, we've referenced that one earlier, but in the second episode where they go to Pottsville,
I think it's Pottsfield.
and there's Enoch, the giant pumpkin ruler in that world. That's what this is based on.
Yeah.
And by based, I mean directly ripped from.
It's yeah, I mean, I say we don't have influences, but we totally did from like scene to scene, moment to moment. But it was a thing of like what influenced the overall movie? Nothing really other than Halloween, but these little moments do have influences. Like
The crow, throwing the crow is always
The crow-
so funny to me.
yeah, this is
And I love how you can see the string on the crow, but that's the best part.
we
I
don't
love it.
we're taking it, it's campy, but we're taking it with a straight face essentially.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm thinking of, what's that Peter Jackson movie, Bad Taste?
Bad Taste.
It's
yeah.
kind of like a Bad Taste in a way, where it's like, this
Yeah.
is over the top and crazy, but but you love it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the idea behind this. I mean, this whole movie is, it is kind of ridiculous and serious and not realistic in terms of what's real in our world. But
This is the biggest stunt we did.
this was,
Oh.
yeah.
Coming down those steps blind was terrifying, because I can't see when I'm in that costume.
Yeah. And this is another example coming up of how we kind of fudge the rules of reality. So 1 minute the TV and Pumpkin are there, the next they aren't. We just and we don't explain how or why that happened. They're just there. They're watching. And I think, is there a way to have it where it's like they're kind of telepathically seeing it? But that's not as interesting.
Pumpkin moved them with his mind. You could show
Yeah.
that, but no, this just
No,
gets rid of that fluff.
They're just there. And you get it. Like, you don't need to. This, I will say, I think this is so funny.
This is our masterpiece.
And I think if you're watching the movie and you're not already into it, you will not get this at all. Like, this is supposed to be funny because it's so over the top. It's so dramatic. It is a kind of action scene that we've all seen before, but we can't quite pin down where, you know? But, yeah,
it's in the heart of humanity, this scene.
And yeah, it's so, I think there's several points where people can check out, but this is definitely like, if you're not already into this movie by this point, you're totally not like gonna get this or appreciate this. It's so dumb, but I love it.
You can't not laugh. And this looks incredible. The steam coming out of the head.
Not to pat ourselves on
Not
the
to
back.
pat ourselves on the back, but this is the greatest piece of cinema ever made.
Yeah.
Safe to say. This rivals the death of Jack in Titanic. I've never seen Titanic, but I feel like this would be this is up there.
Sorry, James Cameron. Yeah. This is all... You'll notice that the music here is the same as the birth of the pumpkin at the very beginning when Joe first meets him.
I didn't know that.
Also, when he turns evil and he's all powerful, I think in chapter 5 or 6, it's the same music as when he floats up and levitates. So it kind of morphs in from that, it morphs from that creature, Big Enoch creature, into his, pumpkins theme. This little bit of dialogue wasn't originally in the film at all. It wasn't scripted, but it was we had shot the night before. I had edited it, so I had this pumpkin sacrifice, and I thought, emotionally it would have been nice for Joe to say something there. Originally, he didn't say anything. He just buried the pumpkin. But I thought, just having him acknowledge this crazy, wild dream that's happened, I thought that would be kind of an interesting way to start this thing, other than, just like burying the pumpkin.
And it's a breath. I think we've been moving so quick through this movie at a certain point. The pacing is so fast that we get a chance to just breathe and acknowledge a character's death and stuff. It feels good for pacing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is the only part where I had to put the Scarecrow on top of the TV in editing because there was just too much reflection. It was so hard to see. So the Scarecrow was on the screen, but you just couldn't see it with the daylight. So I put a bit of that clip over on top. I dropped the opacity to I can't remember what, and tried to make it look real. Yeah, so right here, more split screen, kind of a more mellow version of the montage from the very beginning. There's 2 of me.
What does it mean?
I don't know. I don't know. The music here is intentionally... It doesn't feel like a wrap-up. And that's intentional. It feels like there's something eerie and there's something off about the music, where it's kind of pretty sounding, but it's not necessarily, like, soothing. It's kind of more a little slightly unsettling. And that's because I wanted to play into the idea of here is... This is him waking up from the dream, and the dream is over. So this transition shot, so this fade right here, so this is him waking up from the dream from the very beginning of the movie. And that was kind of the idea with the music, is to signal that not everything is right. Something is just slightly off. And so that was the intention here.
I love how there's a Scarecrow doll next to him, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's just little things like that. We weren't planning it, but it is like, it reinforces some things.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, you could interpret this as this was each chapter was one day in October, or maybe it was 31 hours leading up to Halloween, or maybe it was all a dream, and this is like real life. Or maybe the whole thing is a dream, and like none of it is real life, and it's just a fever dream you have. But yeah, I knew the first image I had of the movie was that trick-or-treater who showed up too early, and that was scene 1, and I knew I had to end it there because, who doesn't love bookend endings? And so now this is where the credits would play. Shout out to Brenna Fox. But the version of the movie we're watching does not have credits because we're watching this before it's all over. I can't imagine they'll go on for very long. But yeah, do we want to say anything else on the end of the movie?
I don't have anything particular, but if you do want to see more, we are going to have a behind the scenes that goes more in depth on the making of. So if you want to know more about how to make a movie in 15 days and kind of the more technical side of our process, less the movie analysis-y kind of stuff, but yeah, watch that.
Yeah. Make sure to like and subscribe if
Mm-hmm.
you enjoyed this video or any of our movies, because we're gonna have a in-depth making of BTS semi-documentary, semi-interview of this thing. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your viewership.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.